Okay, this is the answer key to practice 6D. We're going to go right down from the top, and hopefully you'll all be set for our quiz tomorrow. So, here we have carbon with 4 electrons, nitrogen has 5. This tells us that there is 1 extra electron for a total of 10. There's only 2 atoms in this particular molecule, and I've used up 2 electrons in the bonding, and that leaves us with 8. I'll put 4 of the 8 electrons around this carbon and 4 around this nitrogen. And right off the bat, you can see that we're in bad shape because both the carbon and the nitrogen only have 6. So if I take an extra pair of electrons off of this carbon and put it here in the middle, that means this nitrogen now has access to 8, but the carbon is still in bad shape because, as you can see, it only has access to 6. So we'll do the same thing with this pair of electrons, and now what we have, make that look a little nicer, is this carbon with access to 8 and this nitrogen with access to 8. And that's that Lewis structure. Carbon dioxide looks like this. We have 4 electrons from each carbon. Pardon me, 4 electrons from this carbon, and there are 2 oxygens, and they each have 6. You guys all know where these come from. For a grand total of 16. 4 plus 12 is 16. Keeping things simple, I'll put the carbon in the middle, and that means we've used up 4 electrons in the bonding. We have 12 left. I always put the extra electrons around the outermost atoms, and so I'll put 6 around this oxygen. I have 6 left. I'll put 6 around this oxygen, and I have none left. The oxygens all have access to 8, but the carbon is clearly left out in the cold because it only has access to 4. So we'll use this double bonding trick where I'll take this pair of electrons from this oxygen and create what's called a double bond, and because our carbon still only has 6, I'll take this pair of electrons and make another. This oxygen now has access to 8, this carbon has 8, and oxygen is 8 and the carbon has 8. This is a polyatomic ion with 2 extra electrons. That means we have carbon with 4, 3 oxygens each with 6, plus 2, because this is a polyatomic ion. And so, 4 plus 18 is 22, plus 2 is 24 electrons. Well, let's keep things simple, and we'll put the carbon in the middle, and I'll put an oxygen around on either side to make 3. We have 24 electrons. We've used 6 electrons in the bonding. That leaves us with 18. Of the 18 electrons, I'll put 6 around each of these oxygens coupled with the ones involved in the bonding, and that means each of these oxygens has 8. But the carbon doesn't. That means that one of these oxygens is going to have to cough up a pair and make what's called a double bond. This is the correct Lewis structure, and before you come in tomorrow morning to ask me, it doesn't matter where you put the double bond, it works the same way, regardless of where you are picking. So each of these different structures would be correct. Okay, we're on fire now. We're about halfway done. Let's do this one. This is sulfur with an extra 2 this is a polyatomic ion called sulfate with 2 extra electrons. This sulfur has 6. This oxygen, there are 4 of them, and they each have 6, plus another 2 electrons means we have 32 electrons total. We'll put the sulfur in the middle. Put an oxygen, there are 4 of them, nice and neat, nice and simple. We've used up 8 electrons in the bonding. That leaves us with 24. Where are we going to put these 24 electrons? Let's use 6 of them to fill this oxygen. Now that one has 8. We have 18 left. Let's use 6 of them to fill this oxygen. That has 8. We have 12 left. Let's use 6 of them to fill this oxygen. That has 8. We have 6 left, and let's use them to fill this oxygen. We've used all 24, and there are none left. All right. Number 6 looks like this. Hydrogens each have 1. Carbons all have 4. This nitrogen has 5. That's a total of 10 electrons. It doesn't really matter which one you put in the middle as long as it's not the hydrogen, because remember that one only has room for 2. And because I've done it this way, I've used up 4 electrons on the bonding. That leaves us with 6, and we always put them around the outermost atom. Right off the bat, we have a problem because this nitrogen has 8, but this carbon only has 4. To make 8 out of 4, we're going to have to add 4 more electrons, and we're going to steal them from here and here and make what we call a triple bond between the carbon and the nitrogen. Now the nitrogen has 8 and the carbon has 8. Okay, we're almost done. Number 7. This is hydrogen with 1 electron. Nitrogen has 5, and there are 2 oxygens, and they each have 6. That means we have a total of 18 electrons, because 1 plus 5 is 6, plus 12 is 18. Put the nitrogen in the middle. I'll put a hydrogen on this side, an oxygen here, and an oxygen here. It doesn't really matter as long as it's nice and simple. And we've used 6 electrons in the bonding. That leaves us with 12. Where are we going to put them? So I'll put 6 around this oxygen, 6 around this oxygen, and that takes care of all the electrons we have. We have none left. This oxygen has 8, and this one has 8, but the nitrogen does not, and so by now you know the trick. We're going to use a pair of electrons and create what's called a double bond here. If you want to ask whether or not it matters whether you pick the oxygen that's on the top or the bottom, it does not. Okay. This one's a little weird because we have 2 atoms that are going to go in the center. We're not going to pick the hydrogens because you can't bond too much to those. So I'll put the carbon and the nitrogen in the middle. We know the carbons have 4, the nitrogen have 5, and there are a total of 5 hydrogens, each with 1. And so, how many electrons is this? I count here is 9 plus another 5 is 14 electrons. We used up 2 in the bonding, and that leaves us with 12. Oops, I apologize. We did not use 2 in the bonding. We forgot all of our hydrogens. Sorry. 5 hydrogens. I'll put 3 around this carbon and 2 around this nitrogen. Does it matter if you put the 2 around the carbon and 3 around the nitrogen? No. So of the 14 electrons that we've used, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 electrons that we used in the bonding. We have 2 left. Well, where are they going to go? This carbon's already got 8. You can't put them around the hydrogens, and this nitrogen only has 6. So we'll put them around the nitrogen. Now everybody's got 8. Hey, this one looks pretty similar. We got carbons, we got an oxygen. Let's put the carbons and the oxygen in the middle, just because you can't do anything else with hydrogens. Doesn't really matter where I put them. We know we got carbons, and they each have 4 electrons, and there's 2 of them. We have 3 and 2, and 1 is 6 hydrogens, and they each have 1 plus another oxygen, which has 6. That means we've got 20 electrons. Well, we used 4 electrons in the bonding. And so, actually, I did it again. I forgot to add the hydrogens. Let's make some space. We're going to put, of our 6 hydrogens, I'll put 3 of them on this carbon. I have 6 hydrogens, so I'm going to put 2 more on this carbon, and the last hydrogen will go here. Does it really matter where we put them? No. We've used 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 electrons in the bonding, and we have 4 left. Where are we going to put them? Well, the carbons all have 8. This one's got 8, and this one's got 8. Where are we going to put these electrons? Well, the only one that doesn't have 8 is this oxygen. So I'll put them there, and that makes everybody happy because everybody's got 8 except the hydrogens, and they can only hold 2. Last one. 2 hydrogens, and they each have 1. We got a sulfur with 6, and we got 4 oxygens, and they have 6. That's a total of 32 electrons. 2 plus 6 is 8, plus another 24 is 32. keep it simple. I'll put the sulfur in the middle, and I'll put one of our 4 oxygens on each side of the sulfur, and I've got 2 extra hydrogens. What the heck? Put those on the ends. All nice. I've used 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 electrons in the bonding. That leaves me with 20. Where am I going to put them? Well, you can't put them around the hydrogens because they can only hold 2. Sulfur is already full. It's already got 8, so we're not going to put them around our sulfur. So let's start filling these oxygens. This guy only has access to 4, so we're going to take 4 of these 20 electrons and put them around that oxygen. Now he's got 8. Do the same thing over here, and he has 8. That means that we've used, of the 20 electrons, we used 8, and we have 12 left. Fill these oxygens to have 8, and you are all done. Quiz tomorrow. See you then.